We are all set to begin with the session. I am requesting everyone to please be seated. So we have the people from the Committee of Laboratory Grown Diamonds on the stage and all set to begin with the session. To introduce the session, I would really request our president to please take over the stage. Gateno sir, please join us. Requesting CIBJO Congress 2023 President to please join us on the stage. Gateno sir, I request you to please be here with us. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank for those who are online. Welcome to the Laboratory Grown Diamond Committee in CIBJO. Just to give you a background why all these esteemed speakers, the chairman himself, Raluka, John and Helen are here. I would like to go back a few years ago when the issue related to, at the time, synthetic diamond, now laboratory-grown diamond, was very hot because there was this conversation and disputing which terminology as to use. The CIBJO position has been always very open, meaning in the market there are marketing condition and market condition which are open to everybody, and everybody has the right to have the market share. It doesn't make any difference which is doing what, because at the end of the day, it's the consumer deciding. And the consumer decides considering his or her priorities. But in the meantime, from the industry side, we need to give the consumer the necessary elements in order that the consumer knows consciously what to choose, how to choose, why to choose. So the minimum element. And then we put in place, talking with a number of people from the laboratory-grown diamond segment and the natural diamond segment, I said, I can never forget, we all are part of the family because in any case, we are working and dealing within the same market. What's happened in the past is history, but everybody knows because it's a recent history. And today we are here. We have done a journey, and I want to give the credit to Wesley Hunt for having managed this hot committee exceptionally, with great professionalism, knowledge, and open mind. But in the meantime, we have seen that the environment around us has changed, as we can see that since a long while we are talking about the SDGs and the Global Compact and the OECD. But there is a segment which include all these elements, which are ESGs, which are important. And that's why, under the leadership of Wesley, and I thank you very much indeed, I want to pay credit to you for what you have done, not because I want to be nice with you, because I know how big dedication you are giving to this activity, and I want to thank the beers for letting you do that. And obviously, Raluka, she is part of this important committee. And since I met John and Helen, we have had a number of conversations online, and they did an excellent job. I am truly happy and satisfied to offer to you first, and through you to the public, whatever public, meaning consumers, but the public is also the members of our industry, in order that once more and again, CIBJO, through these wonderful people and through you, is capable to offer new tools, new elements, in order that we, as per our commitment, maintain a very high standard in what we are capable to produce in terms of rules and best practice principle, I would say great behavior, because this is the way to go forward together if we want to maintain and increase our reputation towards not only the other industries, and I don't talk about competitors. We play the same game altogether, different industries. But my personal commitment is let the consumer prefer our products instead of others, or with others, but still have our product very clear in their list of priorities. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. Thank you, Wesley. And again, John and Helen, thank you very much. Raluka, the Natural Diamond Council is bringing a lot of inputs. I leave the floor to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaetano. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Laboratory Grown Diamond Committee. As you can see here, we're just going to cover a few different things today. But the key thing that we wanted to touch on, as you can see here, is what we've been working on in 2023. So for most of you, and we're going to go through a little reminder for you, is where we've come from. So ultimately, in 2021, we published the first guidelines from a laboratory grown diamond perspective. But what we've been looking at in 2023 is not only a few refinements which link in what the Diamond Commission have been doing, but the real focus, as you can see on here, is actually been on sustainability. I think one topic which I think has come up more than anything else in the last few days, from my perspective, is indeed sustainability and ESG. And we've been looking at this in the last 6 months to really understand, particularly from an SME perspective, how do you approach something which to so many people seems really overwhelming. So we've actually been working with Helen and John to really touch on that particular subject. If you're an SME and you want to look at sustainability, what are the sort of things that you need to do? What are the tangible things that you need to do to move on this journey? So that's the key thing that we've been working on in 2023. So we're going to introduce those particular principles. And really from our perspective, what I wanted to just take you back, remind everyone of where we've come from. So if you look at the list of people on here, the key thing about the Laboratory Grown Diamond Committee, as Gaetano's vision envisaged, was to be a balance of the key people across the industry, both from a laboratory grown diamond perspective and from a natural diamond perspective. So if you look at this list here, we've got a fabulous group of people who are able to give an objective view from their perspective, and that in terms of laboratory grown diamonds. So you have myself, Gaetano, and Stephen representing CIBJO. You also have Andrey Zharkov, as you can see on the screen. We also have Joanna Park-Tonks, who's joined us this year, who's the president of IGDA. And we equally at the same time have Thierry Silva as well to represent laboratory grown diamonds. At the same time, we've got Daniel Neifeller from Chalain, who gives us this impartial point of view from a laboratory perspective. And then we have both Raluka, Udi, and Jean-Pierre Chalain, who represent the natural diamond industry. So the key thing about this particular committee was to make sure all of the different conversations were as balanced as possible. And when we come back to the guidelines, a lot of people in the beginning said, there shouldn't be a blue book. CIBJO is all about blue books, as you know. So I just want to remind people exactly what the guidelines are. So the guidelines are, it's a recommendation and guidance for CIBJO membership and the laboratory-grown diamond jewellery supply chain, and it's intended to provide a duty of care, recognising that the guidelines will be implemented as a process of continuing improvement. This is not about forcing people to do anything. This is about giving people the choice and the guidelines to do things. And one of the key things, and I'm taking you back deliberately because it's really important to think about the principles that this commission was set up in the beginning. The first thing was the primary goal of the laboratory-grown diamond working group, as it was then, is to protect consumer confidence. The next thing is to ensure the consumer must receive complete and unambiguous information about what they are buying. But without a doubt, for us to progress in the last few years, the most important one has actually been the third principle. And that is, such principles should be carried out with mutual consideration by all sides so as not to harm the natural or laboratory-grown diamond sectors in marketing their respective products. This has been extremely important to make sure we are working together as one, to make sure when consumers leave their store, they understand what they are buying, but we do this in the right way. We do not want people to be confused by buying a jewellery product. We want them to come in, embrace jewellery, and at the same time, make sure that we are not marketing things to attack the other product. So, one principle in particular was the reason that we focused on sustainability this year. I'm just going to, again, just to emphasise this, I want to take us back. So if you look at this on the slide here, you can see marketeers and brands should not make unqualified claims that their product is environmentally friendly or eco-friendly unless the product can be shown to have measurably positive environmental ecological impact in and of itself. Any environmental or ecological impact claim made will have to be substantiated, therefore, and verified by a credible and independent third party. So if I ask you in this room, how many people would say that laboratory-grown diamonds have been following this principle? Probably most of you would say, in many cases, they haven't. So therefore, what we actually decided from our perspective, that doesn't mean everyone, but what we've tried to do is focus on sharing principles, how people can move correctly on this sustainability journey. And that's what we're going to share this morning with John and Helen. So the goal of this particular session is to highlight CIBJO's focus on sustainability for the LGD committee, and in particular introduce the new ESG laboratory-grown diamond principles, and as I mentioned here, to frame ESG properly as an expansion to the existing CIBJO laboratory-grown diamond guidelines. That's the focus of the session now. So we're going to go through this, take you through, but please ask questions afterwards because we really want to celebrate this. We want to take it forward so it can really be something workable. We've been talking with John Mulligan all during this week in terms of how we can make this more workable for CIBJO more broadly as well. So the idea is this is something that we all embrace, but of course, this is just the draft. This is for us all to become involved in. So this will be shared afterwards for us all to input and make sure that we make this the best possible document it can be. So that's the plan for now. So I'd love to introduce you to both Helen Mitchell and John Key. So I was lucky enough to study at Cambridge with Jonathan Key, and together over the last 25 years since we were at Cambridge, John has been working on an enormous amount of projects with various different companies across the globe. And when we came across this problem, we said we need two completely impartial experts on ESG to look at the diamond jewelry industry. And ultimately, you can see here, so Helen's had 27 years of experience in sustainable leadership, and from our perspective, and equally John too. So I'd like to pass you over to John and Helen, who are going to take us through the principles.
Let me just test whether that's working. Yeah, great. So thank you very much, Wesley, for your introduction, and thanks to Gaetano for yours as well. Thanks to our hosts in this wonderful city of Jaipur, and thanks to the delegates. So we've had the pleasure to meet many of the people in this room. I can see lots of faces. The dinners kind of blur from one into the other, but I think I've probably met at least half of you in the last two or three days, and it's been a real pleasure to understand more about this industry and also continue to think through how the principles that Helen and I have been working on with Wesley and the team could be applicable and help the value chain, the supply chain drive to action. So just picking up on some of Wesley's comments and Gaetano's, coming into this project, we heard very clearly that CIBJO's foremost priority is to protect consumer confidence in the global supply chain and in laboratory-grown diamonds across the industry. And that's been front and center of the work that we've been doing over the last few months. We also heard that, just go back one. We also heard that CIBJO supports all participants in the industry. So with a focus on net zero, building resilience to climate change, and playing an active role in the transition and demonstrating social responsibility. And having worked now for a couple of months with CIBJO, it was very clear to us that CIBJO recognises that all businesses of all shapes and sizes will need to play a role in driving forwards on sustainability and social responsibility, and in particular, small businesses. So as an SME ourselves, we know how difficult it can be to juggle the challenges of doing business with also having to make commitments to environmental, social, and governance responsibilities. And then finally, we wanted to make sure that the principles that we came up with were consistent with the UN SDGs. So Helen and I, as Wesley said, work in many different sectors and industries. And it's always really important to tie back to the bigger picture and make sure that principles that we develop fit in with the SDGs in particular. So we've developed 14 principles. We've done that based on our experience. We've done it based on input from CIBJO and our understanding of the laboratory-grown diamond value chain. But importantly, we've also done it with input from SMEs from within the industry. So we've talked to a number of companies to understand the specifics around LGDs so that we can make sure that we don't come up with generic principles. And also, we come up with principles that can help SMEs drive to action in a really practical way. So we've built the principles on existing CIBJO guidelines, and there are really 4 things that they aim to do. So the first one is to help companies differentiate themselves through their sustainability efforts. And that could be businesses that are starting from scratch, but more likely it's businesses that have made a start and want to continue on the journey. The second point is the principles are intended to enable businesses to take action. And those actions, however small, are really important, because what we didn't want to do is come up with principles which were theoretical. We wanted principles that enabled companies to go and do. The third point is around supporting businesses to get ready for upcoming legislation. The legislation can be bewildering, as we all know, and our principles, because they tie to the SDGs, enable all businesses, including SMEs, to prepare for that. And then finally, and Helen is going to touch on this in more detail, we wanted to have principles that were measurable, and so that all companies, including SMEs, could demonstrate the impact of the actions that they were taking. Now, this is a very broad and complex and confusing area. We've tried to simplify it as much as possible, and it's very important to say that this is not something that any business can change overnight, as we all know. The intention is that businesses can continue to act from now, but should probably have a 3-year time frame in mind, over which they can get to grips with the 14 principles and make progress across all of them. So what we didn't want to do was reinvent the wheel, but we actually ended up reinventing the wheel, and this is our wheel. I'm going to talk you through step by step. And in some ways, this is a little bit of a starting point for the comms that some of you guys will be involved in, and also just an aid as you read through what can be or can feel like quite a complex document. It really isn't, and that isn't the intention. I'm just going to talk you through how we've constructed the principles. So at a high level, these are the 14 principles. We have 5 within the environment, the green. We have 4 within the social responsibility segment, and then another 5 within governance. And this is high level, so these are really the buzzwords associated with each principle. Round the edge of the wheel, we've put on the 17 SDGs, and so you can see the mapping from the 14 principles to those SDGs. The last one, number 14, which is measurement, ties to all of the SDGs. And the first one is probably the most important. We're not going to go into detail on the first one today, but it's really about taking action. The next part of the wheel is a little bit more detail in terms of a description on each principle, and it gives, as specific as possible, an articulation of what each segment means. And the next part, which none of you will be able to read, we get that, we're going to show you some detail in a moment, is the most important one. And these are 4 or 5 suggested actions against each principle that a business could take in the short, medium, or long term in order to either make a start or to continue against that principle. So we had lots of discussions yesterday around this area, and on the panel that Helen and I were on, I think several panel members tried to define ESG and some of the elements of it, and they did a very good job, I have to say. Helen and I were listening out for their descriptions and their definition, and we think that although it's complicated, we've managed to get all of the important principles around social responsibility and sustainability into our wheel in as simple a way as possible. And it was a challenging task. So we're going to take a bit of time now to talk you through some of these. We've got all of them in the document. You can go through them in your own time. But we're going to pick out a few which are particularly important. And we wanted also to give you some examples so that we can really focus on some of the stories that Helen and I are aware of from the work that we've done in this and other industries, and hopefully bring to life what the principles will mean for SMEs.
Just before we start, I noticed we've lost Andrey. Can we get him back?
Did I push the wrong button? No. We'll try and get Andrey back. Oh, he's back. So number 2 is be energy smart. So this one is about making energy efficient changes and eliminating energy waste. And the kind of things that businesses can do are switching to a renewable energy provider, monitoring energy usage, acquiring energy-saving business equipment, and using controllers for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. This is not intended to be an exhaustive list. There may be other things that businesses can do. But in our experience, these are very practical things that if businesses haven't done them already, they're quite easy to do. So as an SME ourselves, we've changed our energy provider, for example. And actually, when we talk to companies all over the world in many different economies, there are equivalent actions that they can take in order to drive towards energy efficiency.
So the next principle that we're going to talk about is principle number 4, which is about resource use. I've had many conversations on this week, and I've been told things like, my business is too small to make a difference, it'll change nothing, I can do something, but my supply chain can't do anything differently. So my message today is really simple, actually, which is it's really easy for us to forget that even though each of us is a small part in taking the action that is needed, if we do take action, we create new norms and others will follow. And there are a few simple things that we can do to contribute to that change, however small. So this principle covers things like developing a life cycle mindset within your organization. So looking at how products are made, used, disposed of, recycled. It also covers how a business manages its waste and where that waste ends up, and trying to avoid waste going into landfill. Importantly, it also includes how our products are received in packaging and sent onwards in packaging, and how much of the materials within that are recyclable or reusable or not. So raising awareness, getting your teams involved, and getting them to think about how to circularize these aspects of business is really important. As an example, last year I worked with a manufacturing company that saved 20% of their water usage, and therefore their money spent on water, just by creating a measurement that was reviewed in board meetings and management meetings. So just by monitoring it, they were able to identify how to reduce the use of water and save cost. I've also worked with another business that removed all plastic from its packaging, which avoided that plastic going into landfill. So the next principle, principle number 6, is on social responsibility. So I know that this is a topic that is very dear to many of your hearts. What has struck me this week really is how much more we have in common as businesses than that which divides us. And this principle is really about what I was talking about on the panel, about leaving nobody behind. But it's about, for any business, big or small, the social license to operate. So it is well documented that the impact on customer loyalty is also attributable and linked to the social actions that a company takes. So this principle covers things like, at a very basic level, is know what your impact is on the communities in which you operate, in the environments in which you operate. And that's not just locally and immediately, but in a more sort of ripple effect, what that knock-on effect can be. It's also about helping particularly young people to come into the industry and gain the skills that we need them to gain so that our future is guaranteed. And I've been working with a company, for example, that has created an internship program for 18 to 25-year-olds to give them access to work. to give them some skills and experiences of this industry, and to give them a pathway that they can then develop those skills into future roles. The same company has also been going into local schools to talk about how their product is made and sold, and to talk about what they're doing to reduce their impact on the climate change. So these are the kind of things that create that loyalty that customers want to see from your brands.
So the next principle we were going to touch on today is protecting well-being and human rights. This is about maintaining a safe, healthy and respectful workplace and operations, and includes points like prioritising the health of workers, ensuring that the organisation doesn't employ unethical working practices, health and safety, so protecting workers from risk and from injury, providing fair pay, treating all people with dignity and respect, and recognising that most human rights issues are hidden in supply chains. So I've done a lot of work in the shipping industry, and have worked with companies that employ some of the 2 million seafarers that keep the world moving, and are working on the 120,000 vessels out at sea, some of which are delivering raw materials and finished product for this industry. And that's a notoriously challenging sector and industry in order to achieve well-being against all of these points. And there are SMEs within this value chain, and the types of things that SMEs are able to do and some of these are very, very simple, and they sound like they aren't earth-shattering, but very simple things like having a safety moment at the start of meetings, which big mining companies, big jewelry companies do. Any company can do that. So putting safety on the agenda sounds really simple, and it is. Doesn't cost anything, and can actually be built into your processes in your business. So I give that as an example because it's basically free. Not all of the actions in this wheel are free. Some of them are difficult, some of them require investment, but that's a good example of something that every company can do. So we're just going to talk about two more. The next one is maintaining responsible sourcing, which is about understanding and taking responsibility for the environmental and social impacts of purchasing. And this is something that many people in the room will be familiar with. It's about knowing your supplier, knowing the source of the materials that are used. It's about monitoring, managing, and reducing the supply chain impact through the supply chain. It's about traceability. It comes back to some of the other segments on the wheel. So human rights and monitoring those is in here. It's about providing employees with training, and it's also about the environmental impact. So one company's scope 1 emissions or another company's scope 3 emissions, and all of that stuff's getting much more complicated. It's very interlinked and increasingly is being measured and regulated. So some of the things that you can do in this area include doing an audit of your supply chain. And there are companies who will audit any of these points actually, but one I know very well will do an audit around workers' conditions and anti-slavery. It's a very cool company. They actually make a few phone calls. It's a little bit covert, but they go and talk to workers leaving the factory gate or workers who are off duty, and they just ask a few questions. And it's a really effective way of understanding really very quickly if there's anything untoward going on in your supply chain.
So John has mentioned this at the beginning. For those of you who are Lord of the Rings fans, this principle is the one that unites them all. John talked about that Principle 1 and Principle 14 are the two most important of all of them, and the place to start, really. But this one is about building and maintaining trust, and it is also how the industry will protect consumers. And it's about measurement and evidencing what is happening, what the activities you are doing, and how sustainable they are. So it is the most important one, alongside Principle 1. It is recommended that adopting these principles starts with Principle 1 and 14 and a couple of others to get going on before trying to attempt the remaining 10. So how do you evidence your environmental and social impact? Well, the first thing is to collect some data about what you're doing. And what we're saying here is that if you come away from this session with one thing in mind, it's really that to measure what's happening, what your business is doing, evidence it with data, and record that which can be evidenced. And so, as Wesley said at the beginning, to avoid unsubstantiated claims, this is how you do it. And if you want, for a business to talk about being sustainable and socially responsible, it's about these 14 things. So it's also like a checklist, if you like, to go as a business to go, what on this wheel am I already doing? How far am I along to doing it? And where are the gaps? And there are plenty of free tools out there on the internet that can be used to help measure, record, and report. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
Oh, just on the free tools. These can work at lots of different levels, but in particular around carbon impact of your, and I'm sure many people in this room will have used this themselves or for their colleagues for working out carbon impact of individuals. But there are SME-based tools as well, where you can quickly calculate the carbon footprint of your business and your supply chain. And a lot of those now are free. So just returning to the high level, hopefully we've given you a flavour of what's in here. Don't be put off when you see the detailed wheel. There is a lot of information in here, but that's it goes with the territory. This is a complex area. It's very difficult to simplify it. We think we've come up with a way which enables simple and clear communication of what ESG means to an SME business in the laboratory-grown diamond supply chain, and helps them think about what they can do to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John and Helen. I hope that gave you a little bit of a snippet about what we've looked at. We didn't want to go through every single particular principle. What we wanted you to see was some of the ideas that could actually go into that. So from our perspective, we hope that gives you a bit of a window in terms of what we've been looking at. The idea in terms of next steps is for us to send this to everyone, but this is for Steve Benson most probably to send out the documents that everyone can review it in their own time. And as we talked about, it'd be great for this to be a working, living document, which ultimately we can improve, and with John Mulligan as well, make sure that we can try and ensure these principles could be of use for CIBJO more broadly. So that's instinctively what we're going to be doing next. In terms of questions, now is the time to ask whatever questions you'd like to come up with, and please feel free to do that. Before we go into questions, I can see Joanna's just dropped off. I was going to ask if Andrey or Jean-Pierre wanted to add anything in particular at this stage, because Andrey, Joanna, has been heavily involved in talking through this detail. We know a lot of this can be quite daunting. The idea is this isn't meant to be daunting. It's meant to be an holistic picture so people can start the process as they want to do that. So, and we're going to be talking about that with Joanna. Did you want to add anything, Joanna or Andrey, at this stage?
Good morning, everyone in Jaipur. Thank you very much, Wes.
Good morning,
Thank you,
Joanna.
Helen and John. An excellent and nuanced piece of work, which I only welcome. I wear two hats as president of the IGDA and also as a small business owner in the librarian segment myself. So I'm very cognizant of the challenges which are faced to the owner of an SME in general. And I very much construe our role at the IGDA as digesting this content-rich information and providing a bridge into a pragmatic business reality.
Thank you, Joanna. And Andrey, did you want to add anything from your perspective? I know you've been involved in the process.
Good morning to everyone. First of all, yes, Wesley and everyone who has participated in this great job. Thank you very much. I think it's a very interesting and very important piece of work. And I think that for the last 5 years that we've been working together in Laboratory Grown Diamond Committee, I think this actually ESG principles which are presented today is also very important move in our mutual cooperation, in our work. And I would like to say that Laboratory Grown Diamonds itself reflects an evolution of the market, of the diamond market, and it also, I think it reflects the evolution of most of the markets due to the development of technologies and ESG principles which we presented today. It's also a very important evolution of our life, of our culture. And of course, it's a very long journey ahead that has to be, first steps have to be taken right now. So thank you very much. And it's an honor for me to be part of this wonderful committee and CIBJO, of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrey and Joanna have been invaluable in this process, particularly from that LGD perspective, which we know is so unique and ultimately so important as well. I'm just going to hand over, I think Raluka wanted to mention something as well.
Yes, thank you so much. I wanted to highlight that this work for us is incredibly important because it does ensure an absolutely vital alignment. Because we all end up speaking in completely different ways and nobody is clarified about what is it that we support and what is it that we stand for. So there is a lot of fantastic work that is being done also within the nomenclature committee, where they're trying to look at definitions of elements such as ethical, responsible, or sustainable action. So that's part of the communication alignment exercise, and this is fundamentally crucial to adding concrete examples and concrete elements that are basically the elements of action behind all those words and what is it that we can all do. So I definitely welcome an absolutely crucial alignment.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Raluka. So as you can see, I think the key thing within this committee, we wanted to bring together laboratory grown diamond players and natural diamond players to really share the vision in terms of what ESG should look like. And I hope you can see that that's really what we've tried to achieve. Now, please, any questions? We're open for any questions. Anghel, please.
Hi. I'm Anghel. I'm the founder and CEO of Helen Company, fine jewelry, diamond and gemstone launch and growth specialists. My question is, first of all, thank you very much. The fact that you've simplified it and made actionable steps and correlated it to the SDGs, I think is phenomenal. We're constantly asked about where do we begin and what are the simple steps we can take. So you've done an amazing job with the wheel that you reinvented. My question is this, because I'm looking forward to reading this in more detail. Number one, I would like you to tell us all exactly where does it exist? Is it on the CIBJO website, et cetera, so that we can pore over it and provide, our feedback and contribution, or certainly be able to ask some more questions, number one. And number two, I'm wondering how much specialized language is in this wheel, because I understand you guys are the CIBJO Laboratory Grown Diamond Committee. Or can this wheel be used as a wider rubric and framework for CIBJO as, an arm out to the entire global community? Thank you.
Thank you all. That's a great couple of questions. So I'll start with the first question. So from what will happen now, so Steve Benson will send it out on the CIBJO email to everyone in terms of the ability, and that's all of the people who have the CIBJO links within their inbox. So Steve will do that, and then hopefully, and if we want to, we can actually put it straight on the website. So I think that's a great suggestion. Rather than just send it out, why not just put it straight on the website? For sure, we can do that. So that's the first thing that we will do, and I hope that satisfies that, Elle. From a second question and perspective, I might as well, I guess, ask John to fill in, because John, as president of the supply chain and responsible sourcing area, has been looking at, indeed, that question. So I'll pass over to John.
I'm not sure I'm president of the supply chain. That gives me quite a lot of responsibility. But thank you. I wanted to comment on this anyway, and Elle, thank you for the question, because I'm going to try and answer it on Wesley's behalf too. I saw this work. I was very lucky to meet these guys at the airport, and on the way they kind of started talking about the work, which I was interested in, and they showed it to me on the phone. And it took me about 5 or 10 minutes to realize this was very broadly applicable work. There's very little in it that's overly technical. There's an element that is relevant to the laboratory-grown diamonds, but the vast majority should be relevant to all of you. And so the next step for me is to take this work, synthesize it with other work we've already commissioned, and then there'll be a further feedback loop to say this becomes part of the Sustainable Development Commission's toolkit recommendations for you all. So there may be an iteration in terms of feedback loop immediately, but in terms of this being a template for action for the whole of CIBJO membership, I think that's the next real major step for me. If I can understand it in the back of a cab in 5 minutes, I'm hoping you can too. So yeah, very great work. I can't compliment these guys enough. It's made my job an awful lot easier, which, being slightly lazy, makes it a positive all round. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Elle, did that answer the questions you had? Fantastic, great. I saw Ed had his hand up as well. Ed, did you want to step in?
Good morning, Ed Johnson from Gemfields. I guess the main point that I wanted to make is our business as a coloured gemstone mining business in Africa is very different from the needs that you were trying to address for the lab-grown and natural diamond sector. But I think I just want to concur with what John said, and it's based on our reality of having gone through this and setting our own framework. The similarities that I found with what we've put in place, again, a totally different business. You've got 14, we've got 4 pillars with 16 different strategic goals. But the focus for us has been much more on community. So we focus much more on the S piece in the ES&G. Of course, I understand why you've got a bit more on the environmental piece because of the context. So I just wanted to applaud the work. And again, I look forward to looking at it in detail, having gone through a long process to come up with ours. So I respect how much work it is. And I like the clarity and simplification. I also like your graphics much better than the way I've done it internally for our consumption. That's a preamble to my question. Have you been able to actually look and quantify the footprint of a carat of diamond in both sectors? I know this has been an issue that's been floating around for some time, and of course there are many differences in where it's mined or how it's produced in each different market. But is there any way you can look at that. And I'll just give our transparent perspective from a coloured stone perspective. And Anushka will remember that we've presented to some of our stakeholders a very unscientific assessment of emerald footprint. And we found that the greenhouse gas emissions of 1 carat of emerald is about the same as a paperback book, which I consider pretty minimal. Of course, it can be improved, and we're working on doing that. But I regularly see different figures applied to the carbon footprint of a single lab-grown or a single natural mined diamond. Have you been able to find any qualifiable and quantifiable answers on that question? Thank you.
It's a great question, Ed, and it's one we're often asked, and actually from our perspective, we haven't focused on that within the committee itself, but I do know the Natural Diamond Council has looked at that a number of times, so I was going to ask Raluka just to let us know from that perspective. But I also think sometimes that simplification is not always particularly helpful, because I think it's actually business-based rather than product-based, which is particularly important. And I think that's how things are going to evolve, because ultimately, from our perspective, one laboratory-grown diamond is going to have a very different footprint from another one. And I think it's really important, and the work that we're doing here is for everyone to take the responsibility to look at their own supply chain, look at where their product's coming from. So I think, yes, we have looked at it broadly, but I think that's not going to necessarily help us from a sustainable development perspective going forward, and we need everyone to take that responsibility to look at their own business. Maybe John or Helen would want to add on to that. I hope that answers your question, Ed, but I'll let Raluka. Did you want to touch on that? Because I know you've looked at this.
Absolutely.
Question.
So many times, and we're spot on, we're definitely aligned. I would caution the approach towards that model, because each and every actor has completely different operations. The reality in one country that is based on a certain elements of natural resources or social pressing issues in one country are definitely not the same as in another country. So for me, generalization is basically a way to avoid everyone's responsibility. So I always say, look at each and every organization that you buy your products from or you collaborate with, and ask them what is it that they do, what's the carbon footprint that they want to reduce, what's the role that they want to take to solve some of the problems that they find pressing around them. So that's definitely the approach that we've taken. And this is a great cue to do some shameless marketing or advertising. This is the Diamond Facts report that you can find in the welcome packs that have so generously been provided by the GJEPC. This is where, Ed, you can find a lot of the information on the question that you asked. It's a report that the Natural Diamond Council has put together earlier this year and has made it available to the market. This is super dense, so I don't expect you all to read this every single evening for a very long time. So we have shortened version with a simple 4-pager, a lot of social media videos to explain a lot of the myths and especially misconceptions within the world of diamonds. And there I saw Joanna also nodding. We have also presented a bit, and in a very respectful way, why is it that you have different realities in both the natural diamond world as well as the laboratory-grown diamond world, and why it's so difficult to compare within the same sector or unit of products. I hope that completes what you started saying, Wes.
Thanks, Raluka. That's perfect. I just wanted to give Joanna the chance to talk as well. From an equity perspective, of course, Ed, from the natural diamond and laboratory-grown diamond perspective. Joanna, did you want to add anything, or you're comfortable with the answers to date?
I'm very comfortable with all the answers, but I would like to reiterate a couple of points, if I may. One, not all laboratory-grown diamonds are created equal. I think in this document we're striving for a nuanced understanding of a really complex subject for which there is no ultimate course, user manual or guide. So I think to an extent we're all sort of feeling our way, and I would very much push for an entire life cycle analysis rather than a reductionist view of energy consumption per carat, though I feel that the intention is very laudable and comes from a very authentic place. I share your view, Wes, that we need to have perhaps a slightly greater aperture when we're looking at this whole ESG debate and not just reduce it down to one single metric. though that's a good aspiration to have long term.
Thank you, Joanna. I hope, Ed, that answered your questions sufficiently. Fantastic. Any other questions? Anyone?
Wes, if I can just add,
Of course, please.
there was, after we had the first committee meeting, I did have several questions, the same question asked several times. And then this model has been very beautifully clarified from the work that John and Helen put together, but it's not a new model, and it's definitely not a new structure. It's not a standard that we're trying to put together. This is a, let's say, great preparation for each and every one of you that would be interested in getting certification. You have specialized organizations that do that. Responsible Jewelry Council, of course, is top of mind. And they have models in which they will help you assess all these elements again. So in case you're wondering whether we're coming up with something new, a new model, it isn't, but it's a very beautiful and simple, as you've highlighted, structure of how is it that you can organize the work should you want to start putting a lot of action behind a lot of words, I'd say. And then just another word of caution, and we were, of course, also discussing with Sarah and Tiffany on the US side on legislation. Legislation is not coming, legislation is already here. So requirements of how is it that we all communicate around sustainability are already there, and they will feel themselves more omnipresent, let's say, in the way consumers also ask us, what is it that you do? So whilst we all want to show the great work that you do and that we all do, it's important that we do it in a genuine way, and you need to back it up with action. Otherwise, don't make claims, because the negative effect and disappointment in consumers is going to be much more painful on the long term should you approach that.
Thank you, Raluka. And actually, I think the RJC is a great example. So RJC produced their own ESG document about 3-4 months ago, and actually we used it as a reference point as well. I think whatever people do to actually move us in the right direction, to start measuring, to start looking for action and moving forward for us all to make sure we do the right thing is a good thing. So we celebrate whatever it might be. And some people might find this document more useful or another document. Whatever moves us in that direction of sustainability, I think is a good thing. So thank you, Raluka. Any further questions? Fabulous. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. It's been... Sorry, Gaetano.
Gaetano would like to do something with the wheels.
Thank you so much to the committee members. I request our president to please join us. We have moment of felicitation, and for that I would request every one of you to please join us.
I think Gaetano might want to say a few words.
No, I have a comment, and I prefer to express my comment from here, because what you have seen with this wonderful wheel has been discussed several times during the last month, and I have suggested at the time what in one of my PhDs in the Netherlands, in the Rotterdam University, I attended the first lesson, and the professor, who was the dean of the university, on the classroom wrote in vertical, "KISS." I said, wow, this is my environment. But the meaning was a little bit different than what I was thinking to, which was and is, keep it simple and stupid. I went to the UN first time as a tourist in 1990. And then I went to the UN again, starting to learn, 1998. And in the end 2000, beginning 2001, I went to the UN, to the heads of economic and social department, and I said, CIBJO is interested and want to apply for special consultative status within the UN Economic and Social Council. I spoke to a lady and she said to me, what the jewelry industry, the gems and jewelry industry has to do with this status. We don't need you. Thank you very much. Go. Now you may understand, for those who knows me and my character, somebody that say, please go. By the way, I went, and then I went back with my ambassador, Italian ambassador, meaning 1.5 hours later. And then we start talking. We start the process. And in July 2006, we were recognized after an incredible amount of papers that Mark Chalain has prepared for many years, in and out, in and out, in and out. We became recognized within the Economic and Social Council, where since the 1998, I start learning, and I continue learning about the development goals at the time, and the Sustainable Development Goals, and the Global Compact, where we have a very close relation with Georg or George Kell, with the Watch and Jewelry Initiative 2030, and with Iris, we have been there just recently. And by the way, with the Watch and Jewelry Initiative, we are working very closely in terms of activity, despite I am member of the board as well. I am member of the board of RJC. But we are proposing and doing a lot of research for the benefit of the industry. Let me go back to KISS. This wheel that has been discussed several times with Wesley, John, and Helen, as well the other members of the committee, is the result of an evolution. And the bottom line of this evolution is a clear message to the industry, despite what they do, laboratory-grown diamond, natural diamond, emerald, sapphires, gold, silk, whatever, precious metals, is you have to understand that if you comply with this, you will make more money. At the end of the day, this is a business, and the business has to produce money. Otherwise, you fail. In America, it's called Chapter 11. In Italy, it's called failure. In England, it's called in another way. But still, you are out of the business. Now, the choice is, or you are within the business, complying with the business rules, apart honesty, reputation, transparency, and so and so and so. You have to comply with these rules. We are the only organization in the world, as an organization, certified since, I believe, 10 to 12 years, more or less, with neutral footprint with a certification. You all have received in the website, when you register the form, and certainly that form is not there by chance. It's there for a specific purpose. And this organization, thanks to you all, and to the people, top professionals, such as John and Helen, under the leadership of Wesley, we have worked tirelessly, and sometimes especially in the last period with all the things, it was quite complicated, but we did several video conferences in order to reach this, which could be partially criticized, partially because still there is a beginning. But whatever input you may give us and them, yes. What?
I'm so sorry. I have to run to the airport.
Okay. Okay, you tell them, not me.
Many apologies, guys. I have to run to the airport. I've been looking at my clock. I've got about an hour to get my flight. So I'm really glad I stayed, and it's been great meeting everyone, but I'm literally going to have to run. Sorry. Sorry, Gaetano.
Could you please miss the flight and take another flight? Thank you very much.
And thanks once again to CIBJO for
Thank you very much.
this work.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John, for the incredible input that you gave me. But in any case, both John and Helen are here. Helen is staying with us. Wesley is with us. And needless to say that we're trying to give the tools to the industry, to the members of the members and their members. And the wonderful example is, at the end of the day, what I like quite the most is the goal 17, partnership. We need to partner with our client. We need to partner with our supplier. We need to partner with our consumer. We need to partner with the other organization, as we do with Watch and Jewelry Initiative, with RJC, with WDC, with NDC, with everybody. Why? Because we're open. I mean, personally, I don't think I am the warden of the truth, not at all. I make hundreds of mistakes a day, but still, I know that I made a mistake, and I try to learn from my mistake. And this is what we have to do, because our members and the members of our members have to receive on the table, and this is the commitment of every single member organization and association, they have to give to their members what we produce. And again, we do not want to overlap. We never pretended to overlap the activity of our members and association. On the contrary, we want to enhance, support, and let their work and position and capacity to represent, it will be done with whatever tool we may give. The tools are on the table. It's like you sit, such as last night, you have the food there. If you want to eat, you eat. If you don't want, it's your choice. But you have to know that your choice is your responsibility. And if you don't exercise your responsibility properly, then you cannot complain. Because this is the rule of the game. And this game is not a game that you may win or lose. If you comply, you stay. If you don't comply, you disappear. Very simple. Keep it simple and stupid. And that's what we try to do. I represent the stupid part. Maybe Wesley and Helen and Raluka represent the simple part. But it's okay. I do not have any problem. But, you know, I'm stupid only 99%. Only. At least 1% stay. But this is the role of this organization. And this is what we do. And this is what we want to do. And this is what we continue to do for the benefit of every single element and component of every single part of the gems and jewelry industry. Please continue doing and continue going forward in this direction, because this is the only possibility we have. We do not have many options. The world is what it is. We have had catastrophes around the world. Well, the climate has changed. We are not assisting to the climate changing. The climate has changed. The environment has changed. The social part has changed. The governance has changed. If we do not understand these simple things, then thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Andrey. Thank you, Jean-Pierre. Thank you, Udi, for all of your help too, and have a wonderful rest of the day. I know after the gala dinner, to come here to listen to us talk about principles, not necessarily the most exciting thing to do, but we're so grateful for your time. And if you'd like to go into more detail afterwards, feel free to grab any one of us. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Bye-bye.
So, give away the mementos, so we have few more people on the stage. I request Mr. Sunil Agrawal, sir, from Web of Global, to please join us. Bring your hands together for him. Mr. Arvind Gupta from SGGIA, to please join us. And from Sequel Logistic, Mr. Rahul, to please be on the stage.
Thank you. I go